Dear brothers and sisters, in every one of the scriptures of the past, you find this notion of false messiahs that come and go. Some of them are more advanced than others. Some of them have certain tools of deception, or the circumstances allow for their deception to last longer than others. And sometimes as the tools advance, then the case becomes more convincing because every one of these false messiahs that has come makes a claim. And so if you are looking in Judaism, you have false messiah after false messiah after false messiah, and then there's the concept of the ultimate false messiah before obviously the ultimate messiah. And then, on the other hand, you have messiahs who are like people who revive until you have the ultimate messiah, who of course is Jesus, peace be upon him. And so in our conception, as we look to this idea of Dajjal, and we talk about a Dajjal, and what the Dajjal looks like the Antichrist, the false Messiah looks like, there are a few things that I wanted to cover for us today more about the conditions in which a figure like that can rise and can take advantage of so many different people. Now over the last 200 years, or last 100 years in specific, the tools of deception have obviously increased the quality of those tools, and those mechanics have increased. And so when the TV first came out, some said, that's the Dajjal, it's your iPad, it is your phone, and then it was Facebook, and now it's metaverse, and these are all. And while there are certainly forms of deception that are enabled to these tools, and those tools, as they develop, become more frightening, there is the Dajjal that we hear about from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in numerous traditions, and there is a specific twist to this Dajjal, and that is that he is the ultimate deceiver. He has the ultimate optical illusions, is able to play with people's eyes, and able to deceive them with his claims in ways that other people before him were not able to. So he is the culmination, if you will, of all of those tactics, while certainly the conditions prior to him make his arrival ripe. Now, before I go into the conditions in which Dajjal rises, I think it's very pertinent that we talk about the things that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us to protect ourselves from. A very briefly, number one, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned in faith, and specifically faith, before it's too late to have faith, before it's too late to profess, and to have faith. There's a time when faith comes, or there's a time when faith is no longer accepted. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that there are three things once they come out. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that there is a time that comes once these three things arrive. At that point, if a person did not profess faith, or they did not benefit from their faith, they did not benefit from their faith. Meaning it was merely an expression, but not actually a heartfelt reality or something that was acted upon or practiced. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned the rising of the sun from the west. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned, and he mentioned these three things: the rising of the sun, the beast, and the Antichrist, and that at that point a man does not benefit a person if it's sought to be initiated at that point. It's something that you have to do in advance. The second thing the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave us was knowledge, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us who this person is and what he looks like. He said sallallahu alaihi wasallam that no prophet was sent except that he warned his people about this one-eyed liar, and he said he is one-eyed, and your Lord is not one-eyed, and between his two eyes on his forehead is written the word kafir. Okay, he is written as a disbeliever. Now this builds upon the previous one, which is faith. Why? Because faith is what inspires that proper knowledge, and that knowledge is not merely information. It is knowledge that you ascertain, that you affirm with everything that you have. So there is number one, faith before it's too late. Number two, knowledge of the Da. Number three, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us to make a dua at the end of every one of our prayers. Narrates that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that at the end of every one of your prayers, when you finish, each one of you should seek refuge in Allah from four things. Say again, Allah. O Allah, I seek refuge in you from the punishment Afam, and from the punishment of the grave, and from the trials of life and death. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, memorize this, and say it at the end of every prayer before your now, of course. If you don't pray, then you're not making the dua. So it all builds on it, right faith knowledge of who the Dajjal is, the faith and knowledge of how to pray, and then the prayer that you do on a daily basis, and the dua that you make in every single one of these prayers. You learn this dua, you memorize it, and you say it every time. Number 4, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever memorizes 10 verses from the beginning of he said, he will be immune from the fitnah, from the trial and tribulation of the false Messiah. In another narration, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned the last 10 verses of Surah. And it's very powerful because if you think about the people of the cave, the sleepers of the cave, they were people, young people that left the allure of this world and left the deception of this world. They sought to flee from fitnah, to flee from that deception and to protect their faith. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala caused them a miracle in which He allowed them to sleep through that fitnah for hundreds of years. Right? And He made an example out of them, a positive example out of them. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever memorizes, keeps these 10 verses, the first 10, and the last 10 of them, they will be protected from number 5. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us to flee from fitnah, flee from tribulation. He said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, let he who hears of the Dajjal go far away from him, for I swear by Allah that a man will come to him thinking that he is a believer. He'll challenge him, and then he'll leave confused by the ideas and by the deception of the. So the Prophet taught us in general, don't put yourself in bad situations. Don't put yourself in bad situations. This is, of course, a general principle of fleeing from fitnah to avoid places where your faith is likely to be compromised. Don't put yourself in bad environments. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying Allah is not tasking you that if you hear about this person that you go and you confront him. No, rather flee from this person, flee from their deception, and of course flee from the types of things that would be put out there. So these are 5 things that we take from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam of how to protect ourselves from. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us that protection, but here's what I want to go on to the Dajjal. Does not arrive in a vacuum. He does not come at a random time. There are things that precede him that are not just signs, but that make the environment for deception that much more fertile, and make the hearts and the minds and the vision more susceptible to being deceived. And that's where this hadith, where the Prophet said, from pay attention to the wording, you know. Sometimes, subhanallah, we read through these things so fast in every word you've got to pause and think you know. I never thought about the way the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam placed it here. He said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, before comes, there are years of deception. Before this false Messiah comes, there are years of false Messiahs and deceptive tactics. Years of false deception, years of these things happening. Right, the world changes in a way that it sort of sets the ground. It sets the stage for and what happens in those years of deception. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that a truthful person is called a liar, and the liar is considered to be truthful. Why? Because the liar is good at deceiving and covering his lie. Whereas the truthful, and this is something very profound, a person who is truthful will not resort to deception to prove their trustworthiness, right? And so what's going to happen? They're just going to have to take it on the chin. That's how it's going to be, because will do whatever it takes to portray. Whereas a Sadiq is comfortable, a truthful person is comfortable with just being a truthful person, right? So that's what happens first. Then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that the trustworthy people are discredited. People of Amma are considered to be discredited, and those who are treacherous are trusted. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, he said sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that at that time the most disgraceful of people speak, their voices are projected. So people can't distinguish truth from falsehood anymore. They can't distinguish trustworthy people from dishonest people anymore. And because of that, who's going to take the stage, right? And the Prophet ﷺ was asked, "Who are they?" Subhan Allah. The way he described them, he said, little men, Subhan Allah, little people, little wicked people, but at the same time, they speak about affairs, all types of affairs, and all types of things. They have no business talking about, they cause all types of issues for people. This is what precedes, so this is what's important to understand here. The world prior to him is a world where realities are distorted. Realities are distorted, and people seek to create their own paradise on earth. Our sensibilities are lost, and our fra is compromised. Our natural goodness and inclination is compromised. And so people operate in a day and age prior to a Dajjal in vanity, and they can't see past their immediate surface-level vision. And as people become shallower, the tools to distort shallow realities become more advanced. So people can't see beyond the movies and the graphics and the tactics and that stuff right in front of them. They can't see beyond that, but at the same time they trust it more, and the tools by which you can distort all of that are becoming more advanced. And so you have this situation where if that shallow reality doesn't immediately satisfy me, and this is how it affects faith, then I deny it. So that's why you see people deny faith in the name of rationality. Now, not that Islam is not an intellectual faith. Islam is an intellectual faith. Use your senses, use your brain, but then people treat their senses as divine even though those senses are being constantly compromised. And if I can't see it immediately in front of me, then I'm not going to believe in it. So when people talk about faith, and they talk about Jannah, and they talk about the hereafter, and they talk about the unseen and all that stuff, I can't see it right in front of me. And even though I don't even know what I'm seeing anymore, it doesn't make sense to me because I can't see it right in front of me. And Subhan Allah, ironically, those who deny the existence of a dad, in the name of some enlightenment, those who deny the existence of a dad in the name of no visual evidence, they're displaying the very weakness that makes them more likely to fall for his visual distortions. I can't see it, I don't believe it, where is this Dajjal now? Oh, really, Dad sounds funny, and so people that start to deny it, why, 'cause I can't find it now, I don't see it now. They trust their vision so much that they're most likely to fall victim to their vision when the actual Dajjal rises. May Allah protect us from his FNA. Where do I want to get to with this inshallah? And what do I want us to really take home and think about the himself? This false Messiah, he knows he's an impostor, and he sees things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will cause him to see things that put him in his place. The Prophet ﷺ said, when comes to Medina, he would see the angels standing in front of Al-Medina, holding their armor, and he would not come anywhere near them. The Prophet ﷺ said, when sees the actual Messiah Jesus, peace be upon him, when he sees literally starts to dissolve and run melts and flees away from him because he knows he's an impostor, and he knows that his time has come, but there's something that I want to get to that is beyond that, which is, when Dajjal is presenting all of these different things to people, a virtual reality that you can step into that will completely take you to where you want to go, right? He's presenting to you the dead. He cooperates with the soul that would take the image, would take the vision of a person who has passed away, that believes in him, and that affirms him, and he's creating all of this deception. There's something very specific that I want to get to, and that is when the Dajjal actually presents his Yah. This is something that just caught me, and I just couldn't stop thinking about it. When the Dajjal presents his Jannah and says, "Enter into my Jannah, go ahead and enter into my paradise." And there's something of his magic, Subhan Allah, and these tricks and this deception that speaks to a weakness that grows beyond within us as well. That's not just about the tools, but also about this search for instant gratification. an inability that we're developing to see past surface level where people in general try to recreate themselves and their universe to fit their desires, and they don't think about the long-term consequences. They don't think about ethics. They don't think about what this is going to mean. So then what happens when this presents his Jannah and says here you can escape? You can enter into this, and you'll have everything that you want, and you don't have to wait for anything. Just go ahead and step in, and I think about, and may Allah protect us. I mean, the Prophet taught us to seek protection. I think about people and the mindsets of people as they take that step in, right? And what's going through their minds? Is it that they're so convinced that He is indeed God? Is it that what's the worth of this life anyway? You know, somehow I remember watching some interviews with those that are going to Mars at this point where, or signing themselves up, enlisting themselves, knowing that it's a very risky mission. But I remember one of them saying, if I die, then it's better than being in this world anyway. I thought, wow, he literally listed out the options, like that's how he did the math. He said, I either make it to Mars or I die or I stay in this world. And he said, staying in this world is option number 3 for me. So I take option number 2 anyway over option number 1. You got to think about that, like what world nurtures that, right? Where people try to recreate themselves and recreate their perfect world. And someone that might say, you know what, I don't care. I'll step in anyway. What's the worst that could possibly happen? What's the worst that could possibly happen? And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that he comes with al-Jannah, and or not al-Jannah itself, the likeness of paradise, the appearance of a paradise. And he said that his Yah is actually fire, his paradise is actually fire, and another narration, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned that he has these 2 flowing rivers, and there's no contradiction between the two narrations here, because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is presenting what he's saying very specifically, is that he's got these rivers of lava and burning and fire, right? And he's saying, this is hellfire, and then he's got these rivers flowing, of musk and of milk, the image of which he says, this is my Jannah. You know what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said? He said, if one of you sees that, if you get into a situation where you're standing right in front of him, and that's what you have to do, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, lower your gaze, close your eyes, put your head down and drink from the boiling water. And he said, I swear it will be cool water. His Jannah is not, and is not his Jannah. It's flipped, subhanallah, like don't be deceived by what's being put out in front of you like that. And people have to ask themselves, what motivations and weaknesses the praise upon that could be within us, and this is what I want to end with. The deception of Dajjal cannot happen without the deception of, and the deception of the devil can't. The allure of is one of zina, right? It has appearances, but we can't see past appearances. People become relegated to the material world. They can't see past it. And the promise of the devil is, what? That the consequences are not going to be that bad. If you boil down the deception of Shaitan, the deception of the devil is what? That the consequences of your deeds you should not think about because it's not going to be that bad, right? The pleasure that you're going to enjoy right now is greater than any possible consequences you might face. That's a mindset, that's a weakness that's exploited and that grows. And so then the final piece of that is simply a presentation of what you want to jump into. And we have to resist as the world becomes shallower and our senses become more distorted, falling prey to that type of stuff and thinking about the long-term consequences and thinking about purpose when it's so easily diluted, and thinking about why we exist when it's so easily diluted, and thinking about the hereafter when we can't see it, and we don't have 3D graphics or actors or movies, and when thinking about that meeting with Allah, thinking about that meeting with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, thinking about that idea of being held accountable, and thinking about that idea of reward and punishment, you got to see through it all and remind yourself that I can't turn my senses into something that's divine, nor can I put my trust into tools that are becoming ever more deceptive and deceitful. May Allah protect us from all of the fitn that we are surrounded by, and may Allah allow us to develop that strong sense of faith and certainty that we see through deception, and that allows us to act in that which is pleasing to Him, and may Allah reward us for the best of our deeds and forgive us for our shortcomings. Alhamdulillah, for Allah.